like to welcome you all to the Digital Right Academy by Devon Project Gambia and Paradigm Initiative.
We are partnering today with Paradigm Initiative to do this Digital Academy and also to discuss the data privacy law of the Gambia with focus on in-state police prosecutors, civil society organization, and other actors. Because if you look at it, most of the issues that we are facing when it comes to data protection, there are no laws that caters for this. We see the advent of a lot of social media platforms, TikToks, and other things. Sometimes it's difficult to catch up with the speed. And then another aspect is there is a massive data harvesting happening not only in the Gambia, but here too. Like anywhere that you go, they ask for certain sensitive information about you. But what regulates this data? Who is keeping these data? Who are the data controllers? Where are these data stored? So one of the reasons that we advocated for this.
Data protection is one of the hotbed issues on the continent right now. And unfortunately, of the 54 African countries that we have, the Gambia is one of the last few remaining to pass a Data Protection Act, and that is why it is an issue of interest. And because of how the internet has evolved, data protection is not just a legal obligation anymore. It is now a human right. So digital rights are basically the same human rights that you have every day moving about your daily life, but how they are exercised and protected in the era of the internet, social media, and the use of technology. Digital rights were initially centered on issues like freedom of expression, the rights to privacy, particularly the internet. But over time, the scope of digital rights has expanded to include things like digital equity, digital literacy, digital labor rights. I'm sure you know someone who was probably employed online or is working remotely. So that has changed things like the future of work. The best time to have had a data protection law was yesterday, but the next best time is today.
So if you look at the framework of the bill, it contains 8 chapters, right? Of course, the first chapter deals with preliminary issues, which it's normal in any legislation. It also deals with the basic principles and lawful processing. It also has a component on the rights of data subjects, the responsibilities and obligations of controllers and processors, the exceptions to the rules, trans-border data flow, the Information Commission, as well as offenses and penalties.
My issue is with the exemptions. I've seen in the bill, mentions made in terms of putting safeguards or measures. But then when I see the exemptions, it appears all of our rights can be taken away because governments are notorious for saying for national security, we will do this. So I think what I didn't see there is to say that if the police needs to access my data or the data controller needs to send my data anywhere, that there should be a court order.
I have a concern issue over this digital evidence, on how they are to be obtained. Being a former CID officer, we have procedures that we normally do in, obtaining these digital evidences, especially like the telephone printouts. So like, now we are saying we have to, go through the course to have this access. Don't you think it will be, a sort of big consequences like cases of kidnapping, when the suspect is on the run, or most of the time, the courts are not working, during weekends. Don't you think it's going to limit the police investigation?
The whole purpose of the act is to regulate the processing of personal data with a view to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals, and in particular, the right to privacy. It goes further to say that it would apply to data processing or processing of data, whether it is wholly or partially automated or non-automated information or means. It will also deal with controllers, whether they are based in the Gambia or they are outside of the country. So it means if you are a company or you are an entity and you are involved in data processing in the Gambia, the law would apply to you. Or you are an entity that is outside of the Gambia, but you are processing data about an individual who is in the Gambia, the law would also apply to you.
If you look at the whole essence of having a data protection law, it is going to be very helpful in ensuring that individual data is protected. But also, if you look at it, it is also going to enable the government to be able to target individuals, for example, whistleblowers. If there is no oversight mechanism that is going to exist independent of the government to ensure whistleblowers are protected, because the government can always rely on the issues of loyalty and confidentiality to ensure they prosecute whistleblowers. So if we don't have oversight mechanisms that are going to exist independent of the government, this is going to maybe stop people from whistleblowing.
Fundamental in this law or in this proposed law is having a regulatory body. This is also a very key element of data protection law. So you must have a regulator which is from the government. For example, like we have PURA for electricity and water. So this regulator would ensure that this particular bill, or this, if it becomes law, is complied with by processors and controllers, as well as data subjects having the right to lodge complaints with them when there is a breach to their rights.
On the JAMI, it's no secret that a lot of the prosecutors at the time would access call records, SMSs, call logs, and emails, of individuals, especially perceived enemies, activists, journalists, and then they're often charged with cybercrime. The reason I brought about the JAMI example is just to let you know that these things that we're experiencing today are not new. They have been there, and after 7-8 years of reform, transitional justice, and so on and so forth, we still have remnants of that.
There were several instances, I can say numerous instances, where security forces were the key abusers of this. And a particular situation I can tell you, where a security officer wanted call records for a particular person, and the policy was, you write and deliver the letter to the head of the institution. It will be provided for you. That was the law. But no, this security officer he personally called me to provide. I said, let's follow the law. And I said, look, after I argue with the person, later the person called my supervisor, and the supervisor said, what he told you is right, let's follow the law. Right, if you are out of office, you cannot write, call anybody in your office, even email, we will provide it. I can tell you, this person came all the way to our office and physically abused my supervisor, kicked him, slapped him, and dragged him on the van, was taken to a security facility and detained for hours.
Our finding is that over 70% of Gambian CSOs have reported mistrust or distrust in police handling of sensitive data in the Gambia. It's our collective responsibility as civil society, as journalists, as activists, to continue to hold our public officials and our governments to account, change for these things.
So I believe that whilst we are still pushing for the implementation of the bill itself, it's also important that probably we think of long term, especially in the aspect of developing a data protection framework. Yes, it is important to have the act or the bill in place, but at the same time, ensuring that we have a framework that will guide us on how this data is supposed to be collected. And the very people that say, for example, those of us whose data has been collected are fully informed on the process and how it is supposed to be. And this is very important in the sense that, because I'm talking from a perspective of working for different organizations where data is often collected simultaneously, but at the same time, the protection of this data for those different individuals there's usually kind of a gap. We have a lot of incubation programs and accelerators in this country. They're, let's say, collecting a lot of data about these people, but we have heard of instances where this data is somehow shared with other people without the consent of these people. What are some of the legislations or policies that we need to put in place kind of to protect these people?